Okay, Rafi, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to start, obviously this is it's the only topic in the world at the moment, so it seems, and family medical practice, at least where I live in Taodian, is sort of very visible in the work it's doing. So could you give us an overview of what sort of family medical's operational response has been to the coronavirus outbreak, and sort of any special measures or practices you put in place so that your clinics can keep operating during this time?
We actually, just before the Chinese New Year, a week before that, I was at the school where my kids go, and I was debating these things that are coming from China, and I was debating with myself and loud with the team there, should I put a tent outside like in the SARS? I'm a SARS vet. So I remember the 2002, 2003, especially because the first case in Vietnam came to our clinic in Hanoi, and later on was moved to my hospital. So I wasn't sure, because I said, it's TED, what are we going to make fools of ourselves, overreact? It's the Chinese New Year. And then I decided against every reason to put not one, but 2 and then 3 tents and equip them. And people were looking at it a little bit with, obviously, with a little bit of doubt. We did it in District 1 and in District 2. Because I remember the mantra from the SARS: if anybody comes in and is penetrating the system, you're done. The system falls off. You're finished. So the idea is how to keep people outside. And not outside, but not let sick people in. What we did is we basically it started from bringing the reception outside and everybody outside.
Right.
So there's two, because it's an evolving event. Nobody trains you. There's no protocol, there's no handbook. You move as the event moves. So first we brought, people came in and there was a questionnaire, and we saw the questionnaire is not enough, and I told them, look, in Israel, when you go through an airport, people don't ask you where you've been. They try to profile you. And they interview. The interview is everything. Forget the paper. Paper takes everything. So we needed to train our teams how to interview. And not to be afraid of foreigners who will come and tell, excuse me, who are you? I want to go inside. We needed, obviously, later on, we had our little ear thermometers where the whole world started to move into these ones. Needed to get these ones. So it's an evolving event.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had the positive patient, and we said, oh my God, they can't go into the first tent, they can't go to the second tent, they must go straight to the third tent. So we must have a third tent.
Wow.
So we have different tents, a tent for every reason.
Right.
And it worked, because, for instance, case 150 was profiled and didn't even go through the system, never entered in District 1, went straight to tent 3, threatened to sue everybody around that he's in tent 3, was taken to the Tropical Institute and came positive.
Right.
So when they came to check what has been done, they were pretty stunned that we have the tents and that the team had PPEs. To tell you that we have been prepared, no, we haven't been prepared. We have our masks, which I always have masks.
Yeah.
I'm always prepared for a mass casualty or some kind of things. I don't want to be called it's an Israeli nightmare, but I've got stretchers, everything for a day to come.
Which brings me to my next question. You hear a lot on the news about lots of places in the world. We're hearing a lot, obviously, about the US at the moment, where the availability of testing kits, personal protective equipment, all these things is in almost disastrously short supply. And if you could just, like you said, you were not experiencing those same difficulties to access all of that material?
We have, but not we have for the first response. we don't have for something so long.
Right.
I want to tell you on a private note, would this thing happen not in China, but in an OECD country, the initial epidemic, maybe the world will be speaking in one line and it will go much faster. But because it came from China, and because we have bad experience with Chinese data, and we were not sure, so everybody dragged himself, and he thought, it will only be like SARS, and SARS was forgotten. Right. So nobody actually took it seriously.
Right.
And everybody came with a different. If you look at the countries today in the West, nobody has the same policy. Look at the Swedes. Look at the Italians. I mean, everybody's doing what he wants. I mean, the way he interprets it.
Right.
So, and the same thing, and that resonates on the need or the urgency in looking for equipment.
Sure.
Because if you're a Swede, and everybody sits, and like in the BBC, it was written, lockdown. What lockdown? You're not running to get ventilators and then PPEs and masks. So, but to be honest, there is no country in the world which is prepared, even in war times, in the very beginning of war times, for a response which can cover such amount of population. I mean, to be fair.
Sure, that's true, and I understand about people's doubts about information coming out of China. I'm kind of a SARS veteran myself. I was living and working as a journalist in Beijing in 2002, 2003. So I kind of have been through this before. But again, so talking about information and the authorities, how has your working relationship been in terms of communication with the Vietnamese health authorities? How has that process worked?
Look, it's more a one-way system. They run it. The Ministry of Health runs it. The Ministry of Health disseminated to the provinces. The provinces disseminated to the districts, and district implemented. And in many ways, you are you're not on the initiative. You're on the responding end, which means you have to do this, you have to do that. This is the resolution. These are the decisions. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you not disagree, but you think it can be done better. But in circumstances that we have now, we are doing. Everybody's doing what he's told to do.
Sure. And it seems to me that with a population the size of Vietnam, some very densely populated cities like here in Ho Chi Minh City, that Vietnam's responded quite well in terms of the cases are not huge, and also there's been no fatalities. Do you have a theory why you think there's been no fatalities here in Vietnam?
I don't think, a lot of people ask me, tell me, how is it possible? Are the numbers true? And I'll tell you very honestly, I don't care about the numbers. I care only about one thing. How many people end in hospitals? And is it more than the normal graphs of previous years for this time of the season? That's what I care. Obviously, I care of reducing cases and chasing and quarantining or whatnot. But to be practical, the problems are not in the outside cities. The problems are in the hospitals.
Right.
And I see, and you can't hide mass mortalities and whatnot in a country like Vietnam. You will see it very quickly. It will start spilling out. And the truth is that there is no such numbers. Now, maybe we're very lucky because we are quarantining very quickly. Maybe we're very lucky because the weather is hot. And I do think somehow that it does have to do somehow also with climate, with weather.
Right.
Because SARS disappeared in summer like it never happened, just like that.
Yeah, I have heard this, yeah.
I can't explain on that theory why Singapore has more cases, but I think Singapore is much more clogged and it's more cosmopolitan. And I think Vietnam is also rural. Don't forget, people are stoic. People don't always connotate some sore throat or some with corona. So to tell you the truth, to the question, I care about, God forbid, how many vents we will need. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
And don't need more than the numbers in the hospitals are not till now at least officially.
Okay, but do you think then is there a concern that people with other medical issues maybe aren't going to the hospital because they're concerned that will increase their risk of exposure to the coronavirus? Is that a worry?
Huge worry, not only in Vietnam, worldwide. There are two worries. One worry is that all these cancer, all these patients, all these huge amount of people which used to go to the hospitals can't go to the hospitals. And there's a question, should every hospital treat corona, or should corona go to two designated hospitals and the rest should continue as usual rather than flopping them down?
Sure.
A lot of hospitals are currently, apparently in the world, there's a lot of prestige also. Oh, I have corona patients. Ego. And ego has no place of play right now. And I think the distribution of patients maybe should be something to think about. That's the first group. The second group is the people who are not coming now and will not be able to come later on because financially they will not be able to afford healthcare and to go to hospitals. And that is a big worry. That is a bigger even worry than all this epidemic at the moment.
Right.
I mean, what effect will it have on people of avoiding healthcare because they just can't afford it?
Right. I see. And then, I mean, that's a really important message. And one of the other things I wanted to bring up with you is Family Medical has been great with their communications during this whole event. I get those very long, very detailed, very well put together emails that you're sending out to all of your lists on a quite regular basis. How important is that good, clear communication in a situation like this? And is that always part of your strategy in a response to like a major health crisis incident like this?
I learned one thing in the SARS, that the lack of communication created conspiracies and headaches, which we lost energy on putting off fires which didn't exist. And there's two things. The first thing is, and people tell me, oh, but the applications. It's not a disease of applications. It's a disease of humans. And humans must write to humans. That is the first thing. And that is why I also actually initiated the 5 o'clock follies with a human face, but not too many people in the very beginning came to it because, but I think a disease should have a human face. It should have someone who writes to them, someone who tells people what is going on, what is happening, that we keep our places safe, very safe. Our star 999 system operates as usual. We're doing the utmost to keep the inside of the core clinics operating normally. And that is also an answer to all these people who actually can't go to hospitals because they're afraid to go, because God forbid what's going on there. So guys, if you don't want to go to the hospitals, come down to the primary care. Primary care can do a lot. But communication is everything. Yeah. And I think that communication is something that is, it was something that was lacking from one side in the SARS. On the other side, people ask me what's the difference between when I was in SARS and now, and I say it's 12 years of Facebook. Because on the other hand, you have over-communication, which is completely distorting the whole thing and taking you completely apart. And that is many people who write things because there is no communication, so they start to all kinds of theories,
Sure. Just to finish up, first of all, we wanted to say, I would pass on our thanks to you and all your team for continuing to do your work during this time. We really appreciate it. I just want to get a final thought from you as we maybe start to look forward and we start to sort of flatten that curve, as people say. What's an important attitude people need to have to not not get too comfortable, to stay vigilant that, that this thing could come back potentially?
Look, in my very, very, very first note to the community, I told people we have to get used to the idea that this virus is going to stay with us. It will live among us. It will be there. Like Ebola is among us, like Zika is among us, like other things are among us. It will stay among us. We will be able to probably put a lid on it, but it will stay among us. On the other hand, this is a guy which is a super infectious capacitator. I mean, it infects when you're not sick, it infects when you're sick, and it has a fantastic spread. I don't think we have to be, I think we have to balance our lives a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad that the schools became the barometer of the epidemic.
Sure.
I think it shouldn't be like that. Because at the moment, if the schools are open, the epidemic is gone. If the schools are closed, the epidemic is on. We should have done it maybe a little bit different.
Mm.
But I tell the people, look, guys, we've got to be a little bit more stoic. I know this is not a stoic generation, but our fathers were more stoic in those days. Yeah. I think it's to do a lot with what's called, Kinderstube, which means education from home.
Mm.
The young generation doesn't exactly have it, and maybe thanks God that they never passed what we did, or our fathers or our parents did.
Mm.
But I tell people, look, guys, it's gonna stay with us. Be patient. Listen to what you're told. It's important. It's not done in order to harm you. It's done in order to help you. And we will prevail. It's not the end of the human race.
All right. That's a great message, great way to end on. Dr. Rafi, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
For your time today. And as I said earlier, please pass on our great thanks to all your team at Family Medical.
No problem. Stay safe, guys.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
Thanks.